is happening, Magnusites? You know, I have not done a deep dive on this. You know, growing up, it was my understanding that Cleopatra was black. Then I heard she was Greek. Then I heard she was black. Then I heard she was Greek. Then I heard she was black. And then I heard she was Greek again. I don't know what to believe. Maybe she was mixed. I don't know. I've heard about the uproar that Egypt has had something to say about Netflix doing this, that they even sued them or plan on suing them. I definitely did not plan on watching it because I was just like, you know, certain things I'm just like, I don't even feel like, you know, drudging through certain things. But lucky for me, the Critical Drinker seems to have already watched it. So we're going to get his take on it. One thing I like to say though before, you know, this whole race thing is really interesting when it comes to certain historical figures. You know, it makes me think of something that I saw where, like, for example, you know, when I was growing up, I remember they never taught us about anyone black that did anything significant or added to history in a significant way, other than, you know, like Martin Luther King. You know what I'm saying? Like, you didn't hear about all the black inventors and scientists and doctors and, you know, surgeons and inventors. You didn't hear about it. But I believe somewhere in the late 80s or 90s, we started to hear more about it and we started to actually get offered African American history classes. But up until that time, you know, it was one of those things where it was like, man, how come everybody that was ever the smartest in history were always, like, I don't understand why they all white. You know what I mean? Like, it was always a curious thing to me as a child. But when we started getting offered those classes and stuff, I was just like, you know, I've always thought this. It's always been back there. I've never said it out loud. So it makes me think of something that I watched where it was talking about when you enslave a race, if you go around the world, you will realize that the majority of all people, different religions, their God always resembles them. Okay? So if you're in Africa, you've got African gods. They're black. You go over to Asia, you've got Asian gods. You know what I'm saying? They white people, white gods, this and that. Something in particular, though, with African Americans that were brought as slaves, or Africans that were brought as slaves to America. In some instances, there were Africans already here, though, that were enslaved. But we don't need to go too deep, you know. They were speaking about how it's like, okay, if your oppressor is the same color of the God that they get you to start worshiping subliminally, subconsciously, you start to view them as being above you because they look like, quote unquote, God. And that's with a lot of different, you know, situations. You know, there's been different people enslaved all throughout the world, you know. Whites been enslaved, Asians been enslaved, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? So that's a tactic that you can use to, you know. So I find it interesting with situations like this. You know, a lot of people deep down want certain influential people from around the world to have been their race or ethnicity or where they're from or something like that. Like, that's a big thing. Like, oh, you hear, oh, the first man to do this was black. You get a certain amount of pride. Or you hear that, oh, sir, he was Irish. You might get a certain amount of pride from that. People like that stuff. So I find that to be kind of implemented with this. You know what I mean? Like, it makes me wonder, You know, like, I'm thinking that that's the reason why people are fighting that much over who she is, who she was, what she looked like, what race she was, because it matters, at least in our time. You know what I'm saying? But people flip stuff so much. You know, people have hated the woke politics that have been in our movies. They've been race swapping. They've been gender swapping. They've been sexuality swapping people. I even heard about a movie where they did it was a movie about, I think, some guys in a hot air balloon going around the world, and they run around the world, but it was, in the movie it was a man and a woman, but in real life it was two men, but the director wanted it to be inclusive. Like, that doesn't make sense. You're going to change history? You're going to change history? Yeah, listen, let's not go down there, because, yeah, I know, history's already been changed. I get it. But, stay on track here. You're going to change history just to make something more inclusive? That absolutely makes no sense. I understand. So I understand. Is Abraham Lincoln all of a sudden a woman now? Are you going to do a movie about Abraham Lincoln, and Abraham Lincoln was really a woman? Then when we get to Martin Luther King, what's he going to be? Trans? Like, that makes no sense to do that just to be inclusive. When you talk about history, you're supposed to talk about just the facts. How are you going to change that? You know what I'm saying? Anyway. Let's get it, shall we?
Innocuous subjects are the most fundamental.
Alright. Another one that started a little ahead. Now let's get it.
We live in a divided world, dear viewer. It seems like even the most innocuous subjects, or the most fundamental aspects of reality, are now subject to constant debate and contention. And nowhere is that division more obvious than in the world of media, where every new movie and TV show becomes a battleground between warring factions, each determined to prove that they're in the right. But sometimes, just sometimes, a project comes along that's so monumentally, epically, and comprehensively terrible that it manages to unite the entire world in absolute contempt. It happened before with Santa Inc., a theoretical comedy made by two talentless, mean-spirited hacks posing as comedians who haven't actually produced anything remotely funny in more than a decade, which tried to use feminism and identity politics to attack the literal personification of goodwill and generosity at Christmas time, no less.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
And it seems to be happening again with the release of Queen Cleopatra, a Netflix documentary series produced by one of the least popular actresses in Hollywood, and that's saying something, believe me, centered around female African rulers throughout history. I mean, calling it a documentary is a bit like calling Inglourious Basterds a historically accurate depiction of World War II, but don't worry, we'll get back to that soon enough. Believe that. The show kicked up a firestorm of controversy and backlash, earned itself the lowest rating that I've ever personally seen on Rotten Tomatoes.
Never seen anything that low.
And even managed to get itself sued on behalf of the entire country of Egypt. Damn man, this thing's about as popular as the salad bar at Lizzo's birthday party. So why are people so fucking mad about this thing anyway? Well, the main criticism centers around the recasting of Cleopatra. Sorry, reimagining. Because I guess that's what we call it now when we blatantly try to rewrite verified historical facts to suit our own 21st century narrative and gaslight anyone who calls us out on our bullshit as hateful bigots. Kind of like how the Woman King tried to reimagine a brutal expansionist military dictatorship who massacred entire communities and happily sold their own people into slavery as a progressive and enlightened society to be cherished and protected, and a unit of female warriors who once lost more than 500 troops to kill a grand total of 6 French soldiers as an elite fighting force that would make the Avengers shit themselves in absolute terror.
I think I can smell shite.
You know...
By the way, they've been doing that forever, though. They really have. It's like, you go back, and especially a lot of older movies, like... the Native Americans are white. Like, everybody in Egypt is white. Like, all these different movies, they've been doing this forever. I just want them to get it right. Can we just get it right? It's not tit for tat. Let's not call it tit for tat. Let's not do that, you know? If y'all don't know what that is, it's like, oh, so you used to whitewash stuff 40 years ago. All right, we gonna start blackwashing stuff. You got what I'm saying? Like, no, let's just write things. Let's do the right thing by all people, okay? If the character's Asian, they're Asian. They're Greek, they're Greek. They're black, they're African, they're brown, whatever. That's what they are, and make them that. That's how I see it.
No, it's always funny watching Hollywood activists combing the pages of history in search of some hidden truth that'll finally validate all their long-standing biases and personal hang-ups, and when they inevitably come up short, just kind of throwing up their hands and saying, fuck it, we'll just make it up instead. Sorry, reimagine it. The thing is, works of historical fiction like The Woman King, or Braveheart, or 300 generally get cut a bit of slack because, well, the clue's in the name. They're works of fiction. Yeah, fiction based on real events, very loosely in some cases, but fiction all the same. I'm not a huge fan of it myself because I know how many people can be misled by stuff like this, but hey, I also wasn't born yesterday. Real history is often muddy and complex and doesn't deliver the big, satisfying emotional payoffs that people expect from movies.
That's true. Yeah, I definitely heard about Braveheart not going the way they said. You know, I saw some documentary that I was kind of watching haphazardly while doing other stuff, and they were talking about, you know, just from their armor to other things, and the way he died, and certain things were just a little different, and what he said, and all this stuff was different. Of course, 300, you know, I mean, badassery. We know there wasn't all these grotesque monsters and stuff like that back then, and, you know, stuff like that. So I think it's when they push it as being full historical, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if this was pushed as a work of fiction based on history or not, but I think that does make a difference when you're like, this is a fictional account of a historical event, so you know it's going to embellish, it's going to have some, you know, stuff that's on point and some stuff that's not. You know, I think that definitely makes a difference.
Telling compelling stories that people want to see sometimes means bending and embellishing the truth. Documentaries are a very different beast, though, because the whole point is to give the audience an accurate and unbiased insight into real events, backed up by facts and evidence from eyewitnesses and experts in the relevant fields. Their very purpose is to separate fact from fiction and delve deeper into the actual reality behind the myths and commonly held beliefs. And that's where Cleopatra runs into a spot of trouble, because the whole motivation of this show seems to be the exact opposite. It's there to bend and distort reality, to turn her into something she absolutely wasn't, in order to fit the narrative of the showrunners. See, the stated goal of the African Queens series is to shed light on important black female rulers throughout history, unknown and overlooked people who actually had a big impact on the world. As producer Jada Pinkett Smith said, we don't often get to see or hear stories about black queens, and that was really important for me, as well as for my daughter, and just for the community to be able to know those stories because there's tons of them. Fair play, Jada, I can totally get behind that one. After all, there's plenty of historical people and events that haven't had the mainstream attention that they deserve. The problem I suspect they ran into with this one is that female rulers of organised nation states in sub-Saharan Africa that had a major and lasting impact on world history are probably a bit thin on the grounds. And rather than dig deeper to find more obscure figures that might not have mainstream appeal, they just decided, fuck it, we'll just take Cleopatra and make her ours now. Fuck. Because everyone knows about Cleopatra, right? She's the kind of name that will bring your series a lot of attention. And if you can somehow convince enough people that she was actually black all along, then you'll earn yourself a lot of praise from your big friends in Hollywood. Because after all, how do we really know what Cleopatra looked like?
I definitely would have put it this way: if she really is Greek and she's not black, then you shouldn't try to wash it that way. And I don't care if there's, like, because I didn't know about the Dahomey. I didn't know about them until they did the movie. And I heard it wasn't accurate, but I really liked the movie anyway. You know what I'm saying? Tyrone 300. I know it wasn't accurate. They said Leonidas didn't even last till the end. He died earlier in the battle. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's a lot of different stuff. So, but, where was I going with it? Oh, I would have definitely taken obscure women and rulers that I never heard of. Because I found it fascinating to watch the Woman King. I really did. I thought it was very interesting, and I went into it knowing that, you know, things could be changed or whatever, just like in other movies. You know, they change stuff, 300, Braveheart, whatever. But I still came out really liking it. So, you know, that's fine and all, but I want the real stuff. I want to hear about people that I haven't heard of instead of going for the popular low-hanging fruit. You know what I mean?
It's not like her Macedonian Greek heritage was a well-documented matter of verified historical record, or that we have countless portraits, statues, busts, friezes, and even coins with her face on them, all depicting her with classical Greek facial features.
Okay.
Oh wait. But hey, maybe they've got some awesome new evidence that's just come to light, or compelling testimony from respected figures in their fields.
I imagine her to have curly hair like me and a similar skin colour.
I remember my grandmother saying to me, I don't care what they tell you in school, Cleopatra was black.
Well, if your senile old gran reckons that a Ptolemaic ruler born thousands of years before her lifetime was black, then I'm convinced.
Yes, I can definitely smell shite.
But it really gives you an insight into the mindset of the showrunners on this one. The childly simplistic idea that if you choose to believe in something, then it just magically becomes the truth, even if all the evidence at your disposal says the exact opposites. It's the same reason that I'm not actually 200 feet tall and made out of solid gold. Shit man, even the Egyptians have gone to war against this thing. The head of the Supreme Council for Antiquities, Mustafa Waziri, said that calling Cleopatra black would be a falsification of Egyptian history, and that Netflix is trying to stir up confusion to spread false information that the origin of Egyptian civilization is black. See, that's the problem with trying to appropriate an actual documented historical figure and pass off your bullshit wish fulfillment fantasy as a legit, unbiased documentary. You really have to provide receipts to back it up, and if the best you can come up with is, my gran told me to believe a comforting lie to make me feel better about myself, then funnily enough, people are going to push back against it. So how do you think the showrunners reacted to this backlash? Did they take this criticism on the chin, acknowledge the complaints, and apologise for any offence caused?
You serious?
Well, not really, no. Why shouldn't Cleopatra be a melanated sister? Series director Tina Garavi asks. And why do some people need Cleopatra to be white? Her proximity to whiteness seems to give her value, and for some Egyptians it seems to really matter. No kidding, Tina. I suspect it does matter that you're trying to rewrite their own history for them and project 21st century American ideals onto something that you've got little or no understanding of. It's not just that I've directed a series that portrays Cleopatra as black, and that I've asked Egyptians to see themselves as Africans, and they're furious at me for that. I'm okay with this. Well, as long as you're okay with it, then I guess that's just fine. Never mind that you've insulted the cultural heritage of more than 100 million Egyptians and turned pretty much the entire internet against you and your shitty projects. The only thing that truly matters is what you want, what makes you happy, the truth that you choose to believe. You know, I'm trying to think of a phrase that best sums up this kind of mindset.
Sheer fucking hubris.
Nah, I've got nothing. So, was Cleopatra black? We don't know for sure, but we can be certain that she wasn't white like Elizabeth Taylor. We need to have a conversation with ourselves about our colorism and the internalized white supremacy that Hollywood has indoctrinated us with. See, I can tell what you're trying to do here. You're trying to equate two very different things in order to deflect the entire question away from yourself. So what if my supposed documentary that claims to be based on hard scientific facts is actually wildly inaccurate nonsense with no basis in reality? This fictional movie that I saw from half a century ago was also wrong, so that makes it totally okay. No, it doesn't. John Wayne playing Genghis Khan in The Conqueror was also ridiculous Hollywood nonsense from a different era of filmmaking, but...
Tit for tat. That's tit for tat. Now, though, from what I understand, the true real Egyptians were black. The real Egyptians, you know, they didn't get lighter like what you'd see today until later on in history. So, and that, I've seen that forever. You get what I'm saying? So, yeah. There we go on that, though.
But if you tried to make a factual documentary now claiming that Genghis Khan was actually a black man because we don't know for sure what he actually looked like, then you'd rightfully piss off the whole of Mongolia in the process. The point I'm making here is that nobody's buying the bullshit you're desperately trying to sell them, and you don't just get to use racism as a magical shield to deflect any criticism that comes your way. The fact is, you made something that you knew was a lie, that you tried to pass off as the truth, because you exist in the kind of bubble where everyone's fantasy becomes their own unique reality and nobody questions it, and so you just assume that the rest of the world thinks the same way. And when you got the hard reality check that you absolutely deserved, you fell back on the same tired excuses that get rolled out anytime a lazy race-swapped Hollywood production comes under fire. It didn't work back then, and it's certainly not going to work for you now. But hey, maybe Cleopatra can serve as a lesson for future generations of documentary makers, that what we want to be true is often very different from what's actually true, and if you can't deal with that, then maybe you shouldn't be making them in the first place. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
Yeah, I never knew about the pictures of her and the busts made of her and stuff like that, so there you go. But, yeah, you know, my whole thing is if no one really did know, if it was one of those situations where no one really did know, I would have just made her racially ambiguous if I was going to tackle that type of documentary. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, like, racially ambiguous people make good people to use in promotions and movies and stuff like that, because a lot of people can identify with them, because it's kind of like, you know, like somebody like Vin Diesel, you're like stuck thinking like, wait, what is he? Like, I feel like he's not white, but I feel like he's got black in him, but is he also Asian too? Like, what is, I don't understand what, like, you know what I'm saying? There's people like that. The Rock is racially ambiguous, okay? That look that The Rock has can go anywhere. You could have told us that he was, you know, Puerto Rican. And people, as a matter of fact, when he first became really popular, a lot of people thought he was Puerto Rican. You got what I'm saying? People was like, nah, he's black. He you know what I mean? He's half black. You know what I mean? And to tell you the truth, I mean, Samoans are brown people with afros. The wide noses and everything, those are black people. So he's black. But you know, when people cut things, you know, really, you know, oh well, there's black, there's brown, there's you know, but when you can do that, that ambiguity is a doorway into a lot more parts for them. They can play different things that they can pass for, and you know, people that would rather see a particular, you know, I think race in a particular area, you know, it doesn't affect them in the way it would when someone is clearly this or clearly that. But anyway, this sounds like a huge mess. I wouldn't have did it. I would have made sure, hey, okay, well, then we're going to have to make her mixed or something to the point where you ain't sure when we watching this. People don't truly know what she was. That's what we need to do. Okay? Unless I'm not doing it. Let's talk about some other civilizations that we can put in here where we know who they was. Okay? Anyway, post comments down below. Let me know what y'all thought. If you enjoyed my thoughts and reaction to this, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and share, and subscribe to The Drinker. 10 million subscribers. Woo!